ideas flow, but never
Today's topics: burnout is misalignment, post-traumatic growth, accountability is key, vulnerability creates strength, non-negotiable daily practices.
rambling on, no straight lines. Welcome to my busy mind.
Hello and welcome to episode 35 of Ramblings of a Busy Mind. My guest today is Rob Wheeler. Rob, your story is quite interesting because you have been a Navy veteran, or you are a Navy veteran, and you were a police officer, and you have your own history with PTSD and burnout, and some of it recently. So I would like you to introduce yourself, what you do and how you do, and then we'll go from there.
All right. So my name is Coach Rob. I am a 10-year Navy veteran. I was in law enforcement for over 15 years between the military, federal, and state law enforcement. And I was one of those people that a lot of, first responders are probably burnt out, because the emotional toll that we take during our shift, during work, the things we see, the things we deal with. And it's a very scary thing because when we come home, we don't emotionally regulate, right? And then we talk to our wives or partners or whoever. We tend to take stuff out on them. And it's not because we're horrible, angry, bad people. It's just we're burnt out from the job and seeing the bad stuff over and over and over again. So once I realized or accepted that I did have some form of mental health issues, and as I started to seek help, I went down a personal development loophole, so to speak, and found certain things that helped me not get rid of the mental health issues or the burnout. And as I tell everybody, I don't think that stuff ever goes away, but you learn to deal with it better through the things that we practice and how we behave and how we act. And as I found they were working, I decided that because I do have a service mindset, that I would bring that to other people. And that's what I do currently now as a speaker and as a host of my podcast, the Ballhard Podcast. I tell stories of people who have been burnt out, who's gone through mental health issues, domestic abuse, like real world scary stuff. And they survived and now they're thriving and doing amazing things. And I do that to show people that having burnout or having mental health issues or going through struggle, it's not the end. And it doesn't mean that we have to quit and give up at that time.
Yeah, the interesting part is that you actually have the choice to get stronger through that, which nobody talks about. We always talk about the victims of and PTSD sufferers and whatever, or burnout sufferers, instead of the survivors. And the victory that you can bring with trauma is basically trauma is what allows you to grow, because otherwise you have no input or any drive to change at all if you live no trauma, no matter how big or small it is. And I learned that with the Choose Love movement, where they don't talk about post-traumatic stress, but they talk about post-traumatic growth, PTG. And then when you use that term, it becomes something totally different than that person that has been caught in that box that cannot get out. And the same with burnout. If you constantly focus on I'm suffering off burnout, instead of here's what I can do to regulate myself, here's what I can do to get out of it, then it becomes a totally different story. Then you become the survivor, you become the winner, and it's becoming a tour of victory, basically, right? So you said you used fitness to overcome what you do. Oh, your PTSD mainly, but PTSD and burnout have similar symptoms. You probably agree on that.
Yes.
And what did you do exactly?
So for me to deal with mental health issues and even burnout, everything I do is through fitness, mindset, discipline. Fitness is the cornerstone for everything I do. I like to tell people when they're struggling or going through things to make some sort of healthy habits opposed to bad habits and make those habits non-negotiable, right? So meaning no matter what, we're going to do that task or do that thing because it's beneficial to us. So for me, that's fitness. when I got out of the military, I got super depressed. I actually had blown up to probably just over 300 pounds. I was morbidly obese. That didn't help the military injuries that I had received during my time in service. That actually compounded them and made them worse. And having kids, being a husband, and having that, warrior spirit, I knew I had to do something to get back in shape. So initially, that was my first step. It's common sense that if we look good, typically we feel good, right? And if we feel good, like that helps us, get through those tough times or those struggles or that burnout, that thing that's bugging us. So for me, as long as I can get to the gym in the morning, like before 12 in the afternoon, that is what propels me for my day to have me locked in and deal with the task at hand. And I used to be like, I guess, a gym junkie where I used to, work out like 5, 6 days a week. And it was fine, but I wasn't seeing kind of the fitness side of things, the progress side, the benefit side. So I scaled back to 3 times a week with my strength training, and then doing some jujitsu in between that. And that part of my morning is amazing because for me, whether I'm in jujitsu or whether I'm in the gym, my mind is free. I'm not thinking about checking emails. I'm not thinking about, you know, what I have to do for dinner. I'm not thinking about what me and the wife are going to do, or if I have to pick up. My mind is free. I let my mind wander. I focus either on, the jujitsu, learning the moves and the different things, or in the gym, focus on lifting the weights and how it feels. And that right there is just an amazing benefit. And even if it's not fitness, if someone can just sit in silence before their day begins, or meditate, or pray, or journal, do something before you start your day that, like I said, it's a non-negotiable, that really helps with burnout, that really helps with mental health issues.
I find it interesting that you say you do martial arts. I used to do Tai Chi, and what I found in that time, I was present in my body, which I would not be with the burnout brain otherwise, because
Right.
it just goes everywhere, because I have to go here, I have to go there, this is not done, and you basically have your shopping list 24/7, and it doesn't stop. And my relief was the sound, so the singing bowls that I work with, for instance, or Tai Chi, where I actually learned to really be aware of what's going on with my body, because I actually managed to quite often get my muscles to spasm up and not being able to breathe, just because I was going too far. I was trying too much. I was trying to be the overachiever. And then that was what Tai Chi taught me, to step back, to scale back, and to just be aware and be present, and not having to achieve 150%, but 70% is a perfect score when you do movement, without going into that overdrive, unless you want to achieve something else in a different physique or whatever. But for that meditative state, the effortless part of it,
Right.
the flow, when it all becomes ease, then you are totally in a meditative state, and you can move with no barriers, right? And I find most martial arts help you more to be more focused in your body. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. There's something beautiful in, I'll just use jujitsu as example, like not knowing anything and having an instructor take the time to show you like how to grab a person and how to throw them, or how to, put them in some kind of hold, and you're locked in and focused on that, and you kind of, like I said, you zone out, and I feel like you're more there, right? You're, like you said, you're more in tune with your body, you're more in tune with your mind, and you're not really thinking, unless you're just an inherently super stressed out person. You're not inherently thinking, like I said, of today's task. Now, as soon as class is done, yeah, if I have to go, then we'll do that. But for that hour I'm in the gym, or that hour I'm in jujitsu, no, it's that's my peace. That's my happy place. And even the wife knows that if I say I'm going to the gym, she's not going to say, "Oh, but we have to do this or we have to go do that." No, she's going to let me go do what I have to do, because she knows that's going to have me come back a happier, healthier, less stressed person.
And that's another big point, that when you have a partner that doesn't support you and that's constantly expecting other things from you and not supporting your journey, which nobody can know other than you. Nobody can be in your body and can realize what's going on with you, what's going on. Because how often do we not voice what's going on when we're in a state of circling thoughts or monkey mind? But having somebody who accepts that and supports it is amazing, because then you can actually go the extra mile and you can become you again, instead of trying to be the person that the other ones want.
Yeah, definitely. So what's funny about that with my ex-wife, when I was having, a mental breakdown or mental health issues, she would say, I don't know how to help you. My current wife now, she always says, how can I help you?
Mm-hmm.
And she may know that if I'm having like a mental health day or a burnout day or a bad day in general, she may not be able to do anything, but just knowing that she's there and she has the love in her heart to say, hey, is there anything I can do for you? And that could be as simple as, yeah, sit down and watch a movie with me, spending time together, you know, that's very important. I think support is huge for anybody. You have to have somebody, at least one person you can lean on when you're going through these kinds of things.
Hmm. You have people come into your podcast, battle harder, right? Where do we find that?
The Battle Harder podcast is literally everywhere where podcast is available, with the video on YouTube. So,
Okay.
Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, like I said, everywhere.
Yeah. You have people come in that have lived the life, that have the story, that have had their share of trauma in their life in whichever form or way. What do they do to overcome?
Surprisingly, it varies, but for, I would say, a huge percentage of my population that come in, a lot of times it seems like they say the same thing. Gratitude is huge. Practicing gratitude was one of the main things that got me out of that insanity loop of being a very negative, dark person,
Mm-hmm.
because I was the kind of person that had that permanent rain cloud over his head. And I would walk around and say, life sucks and I hate my life. And, then if someone cut me off, it would make things worse. If someone got my order wrong at a restaurant, it would make things worse. And then once again, coming home because you're in that blacked out state, and you walk in the door and the wife's like, hey, honey, and you're like, leave me alone. And then, that starts a fight, and then that makes things worse. So practicing gratitude, journaling, a lot of people, faith, they find some form of faith in the incident that happened to them and cause them to lean on that faith, which helps them get through these issues. And fitness and just the service mindset of, once they figure out, hey, I'm okay, how can I help somebody else?
Mm-hmm. And a lot of us who help others later as coaches, as healers, or whatever, we always have walked our own story. We always have lived the life and experienced stuff that made us change our way, or made us come to the place where we are able and willing to help others, because we don't want to have others go through what we went through. And that's a huge part of life. So you said you had a clothesline that you had to close due to, it sounds bad, clothesline that you had to close due to burnout. What happened there?
So I started so Battle Fitted is what the umbrella that my brand and everything is under. And so in 2012, I started a veteran clothing line, primarily for fitness. And up until this point, I mean, I would go do the events, I would, hustle my clothes, I would get ambassadors. And with the burnout, just as I was pivoting, and I think that's what happens a lot of time, is when something doesn't work, we hold on to it for way too long, because I created all the designs, because I came up with the name, because I build essentially everything myself. It was very hard for me to let go. And I would talk to my best friend, and between trying to be a coach and find men to coach and trying to do a podcast and trying to sell clothing, and I was spreading myself thin, and that's what caused the burnout. And I didn't even see it. My best friend would be like, look, you're miserable like all the time. And I'm like, I would lie and be like, no, I'm not, I'm fine. And then I would go back to getting burnout because I was doing too many things. And so what I did is I pivoted. I realized that the podcast was growing, not exponentially, but was growing a lot quicker and a lot better than what the clothing ever did. And while my clothing did have a mission and served a purpose, I have a bigger mission by doing podcasts, doing my podcast, speaking engagements, trying to help, whoever I can with the things that I do. So that means that the clothing line had to essentially go away. And sometimes you have to, kill things, not like physically kill, but like you have to kill it off so you can grow and be better. And that's what I had to do. I had to kill it.
We call that cutting the cord as
Yeah.
energy healers. So you cut the cord so the energy can build up in a different way, or can just fizzle out no matter what it is. It can go the way it needs to go. But I hear you in that not being able to let go or not being able to delegate because you're so focused and you don't trust. That's what I found with burnout was my biggest issue. I didn't trust anything. I only trusted what I produced myself. And that's detrimental because you can only spend so much time on things, and then it just kills you basically because you cannot go further.
Yeah, you can't do everything yourself. Like you can try, and I've tried and tried and tried to do everything myself, but some things you just have to delegate. You have to push it out to somebody else. One, they may be better at it, they may be more knowledgeable, but if they're good enough to work at your level or above your level, and that frees up some time where you can spend something somewhere else, maybe with your family, maybe with your kids, or getting a bigger part of your business or thing done, then delegate that out. It doesn't make you less of a person. You're right. We get so stuck on these things that we create, our babies, our interests, and it's so hard to try to share that with somebody else and say, "Hey, I want to bring you in so you can help me with this."
Mm. I had a very interesting realization this morning or last night actually. I have a challenge coming up which will basically be done when we post the podcast. But the interesting part in that was that my social media guy created a carousel for me. And I'm very particular about graphics because I've been working with graphics so long and being creative so long. And he did something that I would not have done. And then I sent him a message if he could change it to a certain way, and he didn't, and he just posted it. And I looked at it and I'm like, okay, it is what it is. Before I would have read it and I would have been pissed and I would have been annoyed and tried to focus in how can I fix that to the point that I probably would have taken it down and put it up again in the reversed form. And I just went with it and I just let it go.
I like that. I think sometimes, we have to go with the flow and we just have to let things, fall where they lie, so to speak, and whatever happens, happens. I think even in big businesses, corporations, that's how burnout happens, right? The main boss or the manager, they want to just hold on so tight to everything, and then it eventually unravels because they didn't have faith in their team or somebody where they could delegate responsibilities to other people. And when you can delegate responsibilities to other people in business, that's how they get a chance to grow and be better as well.
Mm. And vice versa, if you have the employee that doesn't say, I'm sorry, I'm overwhelmed, I cannot deal, like not setting clear boundaries and not speaking up for their needs is the other part, right? But because how often do we sit there and don't say anything, even so we know exactly it's not ours right now, we cannot deal with it right now, and still we go through with it instead of saying, okay, no, I cannot, or please let us do it in a different way. It's not that you say, no, I'm not doing it, but just ask for a little bit of reprieve or help or whatever to make it different.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have a hard time saying no in general in their life. And when you can figure out that your time is more valuable than anything else and your life is more valuable than anybody else, saying no becomes easy and almost becomes like a superpower because it becomes a full sentence. You can just say no. You don't have to give context. You don't have to give reason. It's a very beautiful thing when you can do that.
Yeah, I had to learn with my boss, I had to learn to say I try my best instead of saying no, because I didn't think that what he wanted from me was feasible or doable or achievable often, and I said no. And once I learned to say I do my best, the whole stress was gone between us, so there was no more pressure there. And then most times it worked out because I didn't have that attitude and block already there that it's not gonna work and went in and tried my best, and most times he was satisfied with that. And what also happened with that was his deadlines were more flexible. Right, so communication between people is such a big part of removing all those obstacles that we set in our own ways, be that the way we talk to people or the way we voice what we need is often not really done in the right way. So you said you're not really working as a resilience coach. You call yourself one, but you're not working as a one. I'd say as when you do the podcast, you do the coaching.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not actively chasing down clients or doing, group sessions or one-on-one sessions right now. I'm just trying to spread the message of resilience and overcoming adversity and dealing with mental health issues and these topics that I talk about, being a man, being a father, being a husband, the things that I think need to be said in today's society with the way the world's going. We need stronger, mentally tough, physically better individuals. So that's you're right. I mean, it is what it is, but yeah, I'm not actively just chasing clients right now.
So while you say changing men, my question in that, and I am a woman, I don't have the insight with the men, but is it I find often men are not emotionally available or don't live their emotions. Is healing a part of that, to be able to tie into your emotions, to voice your emotions as a man?
150%. That's so that essentially, for me to be able to come on any show and be vulnerable and say, hey, this is what happened to me. This is the kind of things that I dealt with. This is how I feel. This is how I used to operate. Teaching men that they can be vulnerable. So I have, I guess, a different definition of what I think a man is. I have that old school way of thinking that a man protects, provides, and presides over his family. Not from like a dictatorship, but like if my wife's in danger, I'm going to protect her. I'm going to make the money to give her what she wants. I'm going to make sure that she's emotionally and mentally okay with our communication and our relationship. But at the same time, if she says, babe, are you okay? I'm not going to say I'm fine and not talk to her. If I'm not okay, I'm going to tell her. So trying to explain to a man or men in general that, hey, you can go to the gym and have muscles and be tough and be strong and look intimidating and protect your family and be dangerous and be hard to kill. But at the same time, you can be vulnerable when you need to. If your daughter, needs you to throw on a tutu and act silly, you can do that. You can let her put makeup on your face or do your nails. You can sing to her favorite song or, whatever your kids need or family needs. You going down to that level to meet them where they're at because they need that love and that's how they're spending their time with you. You can do that, and that doesn't make you any less of a man.
Actually, it makes you more of a man.
Right.
Yeah. Growing up with a father who couldn't deal with emotions. Yeah.
Me too.
It's one of the toughest things when you don't feel you can talk to your dad about the things that you need to talk to, because he doesn't listen. Or I had one situation where I was like having trouble in school and I tried to talk to him, and he turned around and told me what his dogs were doing this day. That was the answer. And
yeah. So with my father, so it's funny that you mentioned that because, when you're a child and you look up to your parents, you want their word. I always wanted my fatherly advice and I always wanted to hear his thoughts. But anytime I came to him, if, I said, hey, I lost my job or my back went out, he usually like would one up me, right? So he'd be like, well, my back went out yesterday too. And I have no money too. And what I want to say to him is, Dad, I need your help. This is why I'm talking to you. But it was one of those things where I learned that unfortunately I had to put boundaries on my father. And if I needed help with something, I would either have to talk to my best friend or another male counterpart or maybe my wife. And I would unfortunately have to take my father out of the equation because he was in that generation as well where he wasn't taught how to show emotions. He wasn't, one of the greatest things I did when I became a father is I said, I'm going to always tell my kids I love them. I don't care how old they are. And growing up, I'm going to make sure I spend time with them. If they want to be tucked in, tuck them in, read books, do all that stuff with them. And I did. And even to this day, my daughter is 26. I talk to her on the phone, get off the phone. I love you. She'll text me sometimes, be like, Dad, I need to talk to you. And she'll tell me, be like, what I have to tell you is stupid. I'm like, no, it's not stupid. If you're coming to me as your father, I want to hear you out and I want to give you the best advice I possibly can. And I had to break that generational curse because my father wasn't brought up that way.
Mm. Would you suggest for people who try to overcome their mental health challenges that they take one part of the accountability to be there for the kids?
Definitely. I mean, I had a amazing guest on my podcast, and she was talking about how she was probably on the brink of unaliving herself, and she would always stop because she said, "I can't do this to my kids."
Mm.
And when you live for your kids, you know, instead of and when I mean live for the kids, I don't mean like you're living for the kids and not for yourself. Yourself is important, but when you're always there for your kids in thick and thin, good and bad, then, that's becomes a beautiful thing. And now we're raising hopefully good humans for, our future. So
Is that part of being accountable?
I mean, that's one of the main things. If you're talking about personal development, mindset, overcoming adversity, you have to be accountable for your actions. And that's part of the problem with today's society. No one wants to be accountable for what they do, whether it's bad or good. And if you mess up, just own up to it and say you mess up. It's not the end of the world. Like, a lot of men, and I would assume a lot of people, we feel, sad, it's okay, but we feel like some deep depression or we have some trauma or something bad happened to us. That's the problem with healing. If you're not accountable for it, if you don't say, okay, this happened to me and I'm going to deal with it, you can't truly heal or get better.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a relationship early 20s, and that was one of the things that stuck with me, that situation, that I was complaining about what he did to me. And one of my friends turned around and said, you let him do it.
Right.
Have 50% of the fault is with you. And if you don't take that part on, you're never gonna get out of it. Right? Because I was like wallowing in being the poor me and the pound puppy. Was in our friend group was like, I'm the pound puppy, nobody loves me. Basically, that was the mindset when he did that. And that friend was, and I'm so grateful for him to have done that, because it was an eye-opener, right? It was really a moment where you go back and you look at it and you look at, there's always two in a relationship. There's always two when something happens, at least two parties involved. And every party usually has just their side of the story and never the other one. But if you start looking at the other side, you might see, oh, how much things you've done wrong, or you could have done better. And I'm a big part of it, not per se journaling, but reflections, like reflecting on yourself, reflecting on what you've done, looking over your day and the things that you've done and the things that you've said, and just go over it and say, this is okay. This is what I don't like on myself. This is where I might have hurt somebody by being insensitive or just plain not present. Because if you're present, you probably will realize that before it happens. And then when you start reflecting on your actions, you will change. You cannot be the same person anymore that you were.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I had that long, like years and years and years, a period of time of just being negative. So essentially, taking accountability, like you said, my first wife, I was married to her for 18 years. And during that time, probably every year we got in a big fight and we said we would get a divorce. It was just a very crazy situation. And it wasn't until I took responsibility. I always say that the marriage was 60% my fault due to my anger issues, due to my mental health issues. Now, thank God I didn't, physically do any form of abuse, but emotional abuse definitely was there. And I would throw things and I would break things and I would put my hand through a wall. And because I was mad at myself, I wasn't mad at my ex wife. I mean, yeah, there was some arguments and things there where I didn't feel like she was on my team and we weren't, having a 50-50 relationship. But for the most part, that 60% was all me being angry. So when I met my current wife, that we've been together 8 years now, I didn't want to carry that same baggage, that same trauma, that same anger into my new relationship. And I had a partner that, like I said, has always been there for me, has always had my back, just has loved me unconditionally like I've never thought was possible before. And I know that if I didn't, and I still have bad days, and there's days where I still have anger issues and I'm still upset and it bugs her and it bothers her, but not to the point with my first marriage where I was like just completely out of control. If I didn't change, I don't think we'd be together right now. And I would probably be blaming somebody else. Oh, it's her fault. It's not my fault. Like accountability is essentially step one to overcoming those issues.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that I just got into accountability pods, which is basically we meet once a week. And also my VAs hold me accountable for what I do. So we make a plan and they check in if I do what I said I will do, so we can work together, because otherwise it won't work. But the interesting part is that I was always it's never been hard for me the last few years, last 10 years at least, to own up to my mistakes, to go and say, okay, that's my fault, I did that, right? But having an accountability buddy that checks in with you, that you have to tell what you want to achieve, that you set up your plan, and then you have to be accountable for if you made it or not, and why didn't you make it? And then you get the support is something totally different than just owning up to your mistakes, because that's where the community is important, to have somebody that's in your team that's holding space for you, that there for you when you need them, but doesn't push you in a corner and says you have to do it this way and that way. And that's what I find with my clients often when they start out. It's their feeling of nobody listens to what I need. I cannot be the person that I need to be or how I am right now. And everybody wants something from me. And then there's more overwhelm, there's more burnout, because all of a sudden all of those expectations are placed towards you and you have no way out. And if you try to break out, then they all of a sudden say, oh yeah, then you're going to be shamed and blamed for it, which is not helpful either. Right? If you were talking to you as a kid, what would be your advice for yourself?
Probably just to keep going. I mean, I tell everybody all the time, and they think I'm crazy. If I could redo life over, I wouldn't change a thing. And I've been through some, pretty crazy stuff, but I wouldn't change a thing because that's what made me who I am. I am Coach Rob. I am on the other side of being, happy, being more at peace, getting better at dealing with the mental health issues and the burnout because of all the stuff I went through. So I guess I would tell my younger self, no matter what you go through, just keep going.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good advice. What do you tell your podcast guests, or when you meet somebody on the street? What is your first suggestion or the first tip that you can give them?
Just to, as crazy as it sounds, if they're going through some sort of issue, you have to, like you said, take accountability. You have to lean into that darkness. And so the tagline for what I do is called turning pain into progress. And when I say pain, I don't always mean physical pain. I mean that being uncomfortable, right? Because even if you take away mental health issues, if you want to be successful, if you want to have muscles or get in shape, you have to be uncomfortable. You can't just, it's not easy. Anything worth doing is hard and it takes a lot of time. So it's just telling that person, like, look, you know, whatever happened to you in your life, it's not your fault, but you have to understand that the only way you're going to get over this is by going into that dark corner, that dark recesses of your mind, and realizing that you're still here, you're still standing, you're still out in society, that you're okay. It's not, you can't let that define you. I think the problem is we let the mental health issues or the burnout or whatever we're dealing with define us. We're like, oh, I'm depressed, so I guess it is what it is. And then we get comfortable in being negative, and then we wonder why our life is horrible because we're comfortable being negative. We never did anything to try to get out. And when you go down that hole for years, and I mean, for me, it was years. Like we're talking 2003 to 2021 that I was just so negative and dark, and it was very hard to get out of that. And it wasn't easy. So you have to lean into that darkness. You have to slay that dragon, so to speak, before you can truly start to heal.
The thing is too, in all that darkness, there's usually a tiny bit of light. And when you can see that tiny bit of light, then you can follow that and make it bigger and rip a hole into the darkness, basically, and bring the light in. But as long as you don't see it, you're not gonna find it. It's not gonna come by itself. Yeah.
And the funny thing is the fear, right? So what I've noticed with a lot of the people I speak with, even myself, we're scared to go into that uncomfortable zone, right? And that darkness. And you tell yourself, well, I don't want to go through this. But then when you go through it and you actually start to heal, you're like, man, that wasn't that bad. I don't think we give ourselves enough credit for how resilient we actually are as humans.
I find it so funny, not funny. I find it really nice the way you put it. I always say I go to the dentist. I don't like going to the dentist. And my dental hygienist said, you always open your mouth wider than anybody else. I said, yeah, because the faster you work, the faster I'm out of here.
Makes sense.
It's a simple example, but that's basically what it is. If you face what makes you uncomfortable and you push through, the faster you're out of it, right? You're not stuck in it, and you don't have to wallow in that, yeah, negativity and fear mongering, instead of going out there and finding the tiny bits of happiness and beautiful things that are in your life, and then focus on those.
Definitely.
Yeah. Is there any book or anything that you would like to recommend for people that need some help in that regards? Like, I don't know if you have any favorite author or any favorite coach that you recommend.
So, if people are interested, and it's a little, I guess, crazy as far as the mindset is concerned, there's a guy I follow. His name is Andy Frisella. Andy Frisella is the CEO of a very famous supplement company called First Form. He's had podcasting for years. He's a personal development coach, and he created this book. It's called The Book of Personal Development, and it leans into what he calls the 75 Hard program. And what the 75 Hard program dictates, it has a bunch of rules to it, right? But the main part of the program is you have to do two workouts a day, and one of those workouts has to be outside. Upon other rules, like you have to read 10 pages of a book, you can't drink alcohol for the 75 days. And through this personal development book, what he found is when people do it, it becomes bigger than just being about the fitness, right? About working out the 2 days a week. It becomes about building resilience, building your character, becoming a stronger person. You know, if you drink all the time, you're not drinking anymore. You're educating yourself by reading. So it's called The Book on Personal Development, and it's by Andy Frisella.
Cool. I haven't seen that yet, but it sounds really interesting. And yes, when you start shifting in one area of your life, everything else will follow, because it's not, we're also interconnected with what we do. So if you have one shift, that's definitely the start, and then it goes from there, and usually it doesn't stop. Right. Robert, thank you very much for coming on, and I will definitely listen into your podcast, and check out the book, and we will post your information underneath the video so that if anybody's interested to chat with you and reach out to you, that they can reach you and that they can listen to your podcast. And I wish you all the best with what you're gonna do. And maybe there's a new clothesline in the future that's gonna be more successful. But kudos to you to have found your happiness, and kudos to you to be able to assist others, even so you're not doing that in a client-based, because I think doing the podcast is one of the things where people can actually tie into whatever happens and find their bits and pieces that help them without having been forced into a program. And that's why I do Ramblings of a Busy Mind, to give people the choice that and the opportunity to find other ideas.
Exactly. And, real quick, that's why I also started the Battle Harder podcast, because when people talk, so for instance, I had a woman that dealt with emotional eating and now she's a coach. So if somebody comes by my page by chance and they find that whatever person is on my show, if they do have a coaching or a system or something, I just want people to heal and be better. So it's not about having to work with Coach Rob. If you like a certain person on a certain episode, I always put that information in there so they can reach out and get in touch with that person to get whatever healing it is that they need.
Mm-hmm. Same here. So thank you so much, and good luck for the future.
Thanks.
Thoughts are racing, spinning fast, ideas flow but never last. Waves of wonder, thoughts untamed, nothing ever stays the same. Rambling on, no straight lines, welcome to my busy mind. Ideas fade,